Gentlemen, we find ourselves looking at one of my teams once again. BDL Season 3 is shaping up to be a very exciting season, and I have drafted a very exciting team. My original plan is a little bit different. I've in fact only shared 2 mons between the 2 plans, being Medisizzle and Toxapex, of which I didn't think I'd get Medisizzle at 13. But I did, and I just basically built a Medisizzle team because my plan was initially to just go for the fattest team possible. Ferropex Mandibuzz is super dumb. Medisizzle is a great another addition to that. Zeraora was going to be my speed, which got picked 2nd overall. Golem was my boy. Florges was the Wish Pass Fairy. Cryogonal, great spinner. Ember, just good speed tier, and I needed a breaker, Noivern, a way of getting down from Zeraora's 143 to 123, and then you go to Cryogonal's 105, just to fix speed tiers mainly, and also because I needed a dragon. And then I had Exeggutor because it just fit well as a ground resist, which I sort of needed with Toxapex being weak, Golem being weak, Ember being weak, Zeraora being weak, and both Ferrothorn and Sizzle being neutral. But that didn't happen. I instead got Medisizzle, and Florges got picked right before my 2nd pick, so I decided to go Sylveon, just so I could avoid having my fairy be taken later, because I think having a really good fairy alongside Medisizzle is very important. So I did go for Sylveon. I think Sylveon is one of the best mons to pair with Medisizzle. I think Mystify is great to check possible steals that both of them might have issues with, even with superpower here. I think being able to Wish Pass with a really respectable HP stat to Sizzle is great, even though Sizzle can roost. I think just the breaking that Sylveon can do specially, while Sizzle can do it physically, is really good, especially for a couple of mons I have that can clean up at the end, I feel. I think out of my team, I'm definitely lacking a good Scarfer, which is possibly an issue. I don't want to have to run something like Scarf Talonflame or Scarf Tauros. So what I'm really left with is, one of those 2 pretty much. I haven't tried Scarf Evil, I haven't tried Feeble at all, but the speed tiers go 75, 90, and then go up to 100 on Zapdos Mew, 110 on Tauros, and 126 on Talonflame. Which I would have liked possibly Barraskewda, but that got taken before I could get it, which I was a little sad about, but yeah. Then after I got Sylveon, I went straight for Mew, because it was open. People just left this thing open, and I have to use it again. I used it last season, I had a lot of fun with it, even if I force it to be a Spadef Wall and my rocks and defog every week, which was a fine way of using Mew, but I think the team I've drafted this time is more encompassing for Mew. I think I have better special walls with stuff like Sylveon, stuff like Pex. Zapdos can function as one, because I brought Mew Zapdos last season. It was, my main core was Mew Zapdos, Quagsire. And I think Mew Zapdos have a lot of synergy despite being both base 100. I think the fact that both of them can go either defensive side, depending on what mons I'm facing, is very useful. And I think just generally, they make a good pairing just because of the Mew has so many things it can do. Zapdos is actually quite varied despite what you might look at. Like, you might think, oh, it's just going to attack, or, it's just going to be bulky with its typing. But it can do a lot of both. I think, there's sets like 3 attacks, there's obviously Roost Defog now with Boots. There's a lot of stuff Zapdos can do. And I think the pairing of Mew Zapdos is great. And I think giving myself Druddigon and Piloswine as good rockers, Zapdos, Talonflame as other good defoggers, because I don't want Mew or Medisizzle to always be defogging, because I feel like Medisizzle, it sort of wastes a slot if you have to have it be your defogger. So I'm glad I picked up some more consistent, albeit while they have their boots on, defoggers for now. After I picked up Mew, I went straight for Pex. because my original plan was based around Ferropex, Mandibuzz, I just sort of wanted this mon. I mean, it's a great mon. Obviously, in draft it's weaker than it is on ladder. You know, on ladder it's near enough ban-worthy, but there are ways of prepping against Toxapex, and I understand that. I know that I think I'm going to have a lot of fun with it alongside Mew Zapdos as a very good third pivot to that core. I think, you know, Zapdos' immunity to ground, it works great. I think, you know, Electric could possibly get through this core pretty easily, but that's why I have a pretty solid Electric immunity in Piloswine, pretty solid resist in Chestnut most of the time, and also Druddigon. And I think Pex does fit well with this sort of bulkier core I've drafted so far. And then I went for Zapdos because it was still open at round 5. And at this point I was setting myself up to just have, you know, a very top-end leaning team. But I actually think the value I found in the lower tiers is going to help me a lot. So I've already said Zapdos, great defensive mon, great offensive mon if I need to. It's not a breaker, it's definitely more of a cleaner, but it can definitely get some chip early. Having Volt Switch and U-turn is great because it means that ground immunes can't stop me from U-turning out, and it means I can Volt Switch on anything else. And overall I think, you know, it's very solid with the team I already had. And I can't actually remember where I went next. Let me actually check the draft. Once again, I am very prepared. Let's find my other pick. Did I go straight for Drud? Yeah, I did, alright. Yeah, I went Druddigon because I needed a dragon. Druddigon's always quite a popular dragon, I find, just because it's one of the best lower tier dragons. It really helped Mew, being a great stealth rocker. Breaker Rocks goes through Magic Bounce, you gotta remember. So it's gonna very consistently get stealth rocks up. Assault Vest, I've heard from KJ, is a very great set, and I'm excited to use that a couple of weeks if I need to. There are definitely other things I really like about this mon. You know, stuff like, Sheer Force Sludge Bomb is gonna be interesting. And Sheer Force on a lot of these moves is gonna be very interesting. Because I have this sort of double Sheer Force core with Drud and Tauros, which I'm excited to see how I can use it. Then after Drud, I went for... oh, my boy, Chestnut, yeah. It fit typing really well. I didn't have a fighting, I didn't have a grass. Great ground resist, huge defense, great HP. Good enough SPDF, good attack. It's a good spike setter, which I was lacking beforehand. It's got great coverage because it's a physical attacker. Got some interesting stuff like Smackdown, which I'm gonna enjoy a lot. Needle Arm as it's one of its like signature moves is very good. As all the grass moves that you need, stuff like Worry Seed, stuff like Leech Seed, you know. And I can even run Frenzy Plant one week if I need to. But I'm very excited to use this despite the flying weakness. And then afterwards I think I saw myself pick up Talonflame. Yeah. Because at this point I was quite worried about my speed. You can see right above it, I believe Barraskewda was taken around here. Yep, there's Barraskewda. And then my plan, which was Aerodactyl, then also got taken, I believe, by someone. So then I decided to go Talonflame. I actually think Talonflame fits the team a lot better. I think Aerodactyl would have been nice as a rocker and defogger, but I think Talonflame fits the defog role a lot better. Obviously priority defog when you're full HP, which with boots you can be full HP a lot, is very good. I think Fire Flying is a good type now that boots are a thing. I think having good Wisp support if I need it. It's a very good support mon, and one of the reasons I'm very happy to have it is Fast Taunt. I think against some mons, like possibly like Mega Slowbro, other Cosmic Power stuff like Clefable, and, you know, if we allow Shadow Tag, something like Gothitelle, I'm very glad I can have a Fast Taunt, and, you know, pivoting, another pivot mon is great. And obviously it is my fastest mon on my team. 126 is pretty fast. It outspeeds Weavile by 1 point, which is a pretty nice tier to get. I obviously wanted to go a bit faster with Zeraora, but I'm perfectly fine being this fast. And then next, we go down, and we get to Piloswine. I think Piloswine is one of the best tier 4s out there. I think it's incredibly bulky, both physically and specially. Thick Fat is an excellent ability to have. It is an ice resist, which I sort of wanted, because my plan had a few more ice weaknesses, but that plan changed. But it's still a great ice resist anyway for something like Chestnut, Druddigon, stuff like that. It's obviously a great Stealth Rocker, and it's probably going to be a Stealth Rocker I bring more than Mew in terms of rocks. Same with Drud. I think these two tier 4s are very solid rock setters. I think Ice Ground was another type that compressed into my team very well. Ice Shard's obviously great, Earthquake's great. No Scorching Sands because it's an ice type, but I didn't really care about that. And I don't think I was going to run Special Piloswine anytime soon. Freeze Dry is another great thing that this line has. And, I said I won't run Special Piloswine. Freeze Dry is the one exception. I think definitely for some mons like possibly Pelipper or Swampert or, any Water Ground, it's just great. Then I do believe I would have went Spiritomb, yep. Spiritomb was then replaced by Feeble during Grace, and I don't think I'm going to change Feeble. I'm very excited to use Feeble. It solved an issue I had with my team's speeds, which was I went straight from 75 on Mega Sizzle to 100 on Mew and Zapdos. 90 is a great medium in between it. State Out is an incredible ability, as is Unburden. Its stats might be a little low, but it's got a great move pool both physically and specially. It's got access to Nasty Plot, some great dark moves like Sucker Punch, Taunt, Parting Shot, good coverage like Play Rough for some 4x weak Fairy Mons, Acrobatics for stuff like Chestnut, Virizion, etc. Ice Fang for something like Landorus or Gliscor, Knockoff access as well. It's generally a very diverse Pokemon, and I think State Out is going to be very useful because, you might not think of Feeble as something that forces switches, but thanks to Taunt and a couple and other utility moves it gets, I think I will actually be able to get State Out quite a bit. Because at the same time I can have State Out, people have to prep for Unburden. Because while this may not hit that hard, at +2, Hawlucha only has 92 attack. So being slightly weaker than Hawlucha is not bad at all. Especially after +2 of Nasty Plot. Mono Dark is a fine type. I'm glad I have a Ghost Resist and a Psychic Immunity. And also technically a Dark Resist. Originally, I was fine with Spiritomb because I have Bulletproof Chestnut as a Ghost immunity, because Shadow Ball is just the best Ghost move. But I'm glad I have an actual resist now, possibly for physical, like Poltergeist, even if it's really not taking Poltergeist well. It could function decently as a mon that can come in on a Ghost move against some slower ghosts like Delmise, possibly. I feel like I'd die anyway, but stuff like that. And then be able to threaten it out, and then get a State Out boost. And then I finished off the draft with technically Sork, but I discussed with Grum about trading for Tauros, which you should know my love for Tauros. I think it's a great breaker and cleaner. I think Scarf Tauros is probably going to be a set I run more often than not, which I'm fine with. I think because of the format we're doing, which is we're allowed Isle of Armor moves but no other Elite DLC moves, I'm very happy that Tauros got added, because it means I get access to stuff like CC, High Horsepower, something like Lash Out. The moves I talked about beforehand, just great moves overall, and I think I'm gonna very much enjoy Tauros. I think people are gonna underestimate Tauros a lot, and I'm gonna be very happy to just kill them with it, because this thing just goes in. I also think at some points I might try to do some sort of workup mix set, because, the special attack isn't good, but I definitely think it could work with its really good mixed move pool. So I'm excited to try that out at least. And that finished my draft. I obviously dropped Spiritomb for Feeble, I got Sword for Tauros, and overall, what is my draft looking like? I think my speeds are good. I go from 35 to 126 without any huge gaps in between. I have multiple rockers in Mew, Druddigon, Piloswine. I have multiple defoggers in Scizor, Mew, Talonflame, and Zapdos. I have great special breakers like Sylveon, and possibly Mew if I'm going to run a Nasty Plot set, and, you know, possibly Zapdos, but I don't think of it much as a breaker. I have great physical breakers, something like Scizor, something like Chestnut, Druddigon possibly, and Tauros, and I think I do have the ability to clean games with stuff like Scizor, stuff like DD Mew, Talonflame, Ice Shard from Piloswine possibly, and Starve Tauros, and possibly Zapdos as well with agility. And Feeble, I think, is a very interesting thing. I don't know if I could call it a breaker. I probably should. Yeah, it is a breaker. It's another special breaker because Sylveon can't just... I want to use Sylveon as a breaker a lot, but I can't run it every week. Because there are times when I'm going to definitely appreciate the wish support it gives. And then obviously I have really good pivots. I have Mew, Toxapex, Zapdos, Scizor as my main pivots. Piloswine, Druddigon, Chestnut as other good bulky mons. Talonflame has great immunities and good resists of stuff like Fairy. I've got Tauros as a technical ghost resist. I'm overall very happy with how my team has turned out. I honestly don't think I have any improvements I'd probably get. I'm kind of glad I got sniped on a lot of my earlier picks, because looking at my original team, you can sort of see, you know, it definitely would have functioned, but would I have been happy about having 90 turn games every game? Probably not. I think games of his team are still going to be long, but I think they're going to be exciting games, just because of some of the interesting lower tiers I picked up, stuff like Feeble, stuff like Chestnut. I'm very happy to have all of these mons. Out of the mons I've tried before, stuff like Mew, stuff like Zapdos. I'm very excited to use them again, because I think it's a very good core. Out of the new stuff I've drafted, I already know how good Mega Scizor is. I've known how good Druddigon is as a good glare spam. I know how good Tauros is because I made a video on it. I know how good Pex is because I'm depressed and I play on ladder. I'm very excited to try out Feeble and Talonflame as more of a bulky mon, I feel. Because its bulk stats aren't terrible and fully invested is gonna be good enough. Because looking at that, 265 defense, 360 HP, not bad. Especially with Fairy resist, Fighting resist, Ground immunity, you know, Water weakness, Rock weakness are issues, but definitely something I can circumvent. You know, I have stuff like Pex, I have stuff like Chestnut. Yeah, mainly Chestnut. I think Talonflame Chestnut is a great little core I have. I think, looking at my team, there are things I could definitely have improved on. I think my only rock resist is Chestnut. Let me actually bring up my plan, because my plan has the resists on it. Yeah, it is my only rock resist, with two weaknesses, one of which is Talonflame's 4 times, and one of which is Zapdos's 2 times, which could potentially be an issue. But out of these strong rock types in the game, I know T-Tar definitely was not picked up. Well, let me actually just have a look at the tiers itself. You know, you have something like T-Tar unpicked, Mega T-Tar unpicked, Terrakion was picked, which could be an issue, but I feel like I can definitely work around Terrakion, because Tauros is at 110, and Tauros can definitely threaten it with something like CC. Then you have stuff in tier 2, something like... Let me just actually look up rock types. Because I think it's definitely an issue, but I don't think it's the biggest issue I have. I guess it is probably the biggest issue I have. Like, something like Aerodactyl could be an issue, but no DD on Aerodactyl is very nice for me. Archeops, I think, went unpicked. Major Aggron is on a rock type, and I think normal Aggron went unpicked. Barbaracle could definitely be an issue, but Chestnut checks that extremely well. Something like Colossal isn't really gonna be hitting rock moves very much. I know Diancie Major, I believe, was picked. Oh, it wasn't. That is very good for me. I think somebody picked it. No, it was Polo who was planning on picking it, and then he chose Camerupt instead, which is very good for me. Some other rock types, something like Lightning Rock Dusk. Obviously, I need to be wary of that. I think that's going to be a very rough week for me, because I think Fire Fang is still going to do a lot to Chestnut, and even something like Play Rough is probably a better move to use for that, or Psychic Fangs. And I think I'm gonna be very scared of that. I'll just have to look at possibly Zapdos Calcs, Mew Calcs, just to see how bulky I can actually be for it. But a +2 SD Lightning Rock Dust does not sound fun to play against. Then we get stuff like Regirock, Rhyperior. These bulkier rocks I think I'm fine with, because I think rock is something I can deal with, but something I'm probably not gonna like dealing with. Mainly just because I'm putting a lot of pressure on Chestnut to deal with them. Which I think is probably fine. I think Piloswine could also deal with rocks a lot of the time, just because it's neutrality, just because it has ice moves which hit rock grounds, has Earthquake to hit just normal rocks, ice type moves also hit rock flying, like Aerodactyl. I think I could definitely improve my rock type matchup, but overall I'm not weak to stealth rocks, which is good, because I don't have many actual rock weaknesses. Then I don't think I'm weak to any hazards. I would love to have possibly another like Boots Defogger apart from Talonflame Zapdos, but you can't ask for everything. I'm making nitpicks here. This team is incredible. I think I'm going to enjoy using every mon here. I think every mon has potential to come to a match, and I'm very excited to see how this team plays out. Overall, looking at other teams, do I think I have the strongest team? No, I really don't think so. Something like Grum's team, best Fairy Dragon Steel Core pretty much possible, with Gardevoir, Garchomp, Corviknight. You have something like Polo's team, which looks very hard to both break with stuff like Mandibuzz, Snorlax, and Jirachi, and then super offensive stuff like Kyurem, Barrascuda, which is faster than my entire team, Toxicroak, Zergatry. A lot of these teams have huge upsides. Zeroes probably has the scariest HO I think I've ever seen, with Hippopotas alongside it. Just the fact that he has access to great screens with Grimmsnarl, he has setup, 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 setup. I'm very scared about that team. Clay's team is getting changes, and his new team is quite scary. Bubba's team is also very scary as well. I think Mega Manectric alongside another Intimidator could have been useful, because from what I remember of Gen 7, a core that Mega Manectric used when you used it in OU was definitely Mega Main Lando, just to spam Intimidate. But I think his team doesn't really need it. I think his team has great types overall. I think this team is definitely going to be very scary, both to break with stuff like Gligar, Dusclops, possibly Latias. Wait a sec. Never mind, it's not hard to break at all. I have knockoff. 4 of his mons are NFEs. Zank's team is probably the best. He has Indeedee, Alakazam, Landorus. That's just it. That's all you need for this team. But then he decided to just kill us even more. Like, his team is very good physical and special breakers. His team has great walls. I think Zam is probably one of the best cleaners possible, despite not being able to hold a Scarf. But I think Scarf Infernape is a really good secondary cleaner if Zam can't go in. And I'm gonna not enjoy facing this if I have to. And then, other teams are great. This is Rain, this is just stuff, I think overall my team is in a good spot, probably not the best, but I'm very excited to use it, and I think I can probably make playoffs with it. But that's not discrediting any of my opponents. I think I'm definitely one of the lower players in A-League, and I think I'm gonna have to play my heart out if I'm gonna win these matches. I'm very excited for BDL, and like and subscribe.